Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be making our fourth video, I'm using the royal hour. We're making our fourth video on Gilmore Girls. And I'm just really excited because today we're going to be talking about something a little bit more personal, particularly the mothers and ranking them from least shitty to most shitty. And the reason that this is personal is because I have a lot of opinions on parenting styles and the manner in which people parent their children. So, if you're a fan of the show, you likely know that basically all of the mothers were whacked to a certain extent, despite their good intentions. So today we're going to be analyzing them by bringing up their sociological perspectives that have come as a result of their upbringing, their environments, their cultures, and how that's shaped their psychology in a way that has resulted in the parenting styles that we see them actively practicing throughout the series. So without further ado, let's get on with the video. I know that's such a cliche transition sentence, but that's what you're getting today. So we're going to start with Mrs. Kim because she is the only person of color not me being problematic already, but she's the only person of color out of the mothers from what I remember. Oh my goodness! Oh, that's so awkward. Not me being black and forgetting that there was at least one black mother. It was Michelle's mother. Oh my gosh, I have to write that down. Michelle's mother, who was also problematic. Oh my gosh. All of these moms had a little something going on. Cuckoo, cuckoo. But anyway. So we're going to start with Mrs. Kim. She was a very dominant figure throughout the series, and I really enjoyed her appearances because it really made me uncomfortable to watch. I have had friends that came from immigrant households. However, it's so different to kind of observe, even though it's a comedy, it's definitely an abstract, artistic version of what that experience is, but it was definitely not far off. I had one friend that came from an immigrant family who her mother acted in a manner that was very selfish. What do I mean by selfish? Similarly to Mrs. Kim, all of the values that have been instilled in Lane don't necessarily come from a completely authentic place. I think it's only authentic because of her socialization, aka this selfishness because she wants to maintain a certain image. Within what I've come to understand from the show, and within their specific culture, within their family dynamics, it is incredibly important to follow things in a certain way, to conduct yourself in a certain manner, and if you deviate from that manner, you are demonized, kicked out, sent off to boarding school, sent off to Christian school, sent away to Korea. And it's really terrifying to have that sort of thing looming over your head when you're a young person developing and trying to comprehend the things that you're interested in. That old friend of mine, she was, every summer, she was scared when her family would suddenly mention, we're going off to insert home country, because I'm trying to maintain privacy, but we're going off to here, bring your daughters, da da da, which everyone knew was code for we're marrying them off and you'll never see them again. That is terrifying. Whereas in the show, though that is not described, it's heavily implied, especially with all of the marriages that you end up seeing in the Kim household. It's very implied that things are arranged, you're shipped back to Korea, you're expected to be Christian, have your kids, and it made me very uncomfortable, but I knew it was something that I shouldn't just skip past, because I could have just skipped past those scenes, because it did make me very uncomfortable. It did remind me of that friend. But the more I watched, the more I realized that this authoritative parenting style does not then come from a place of we care about the child. It's we care about the child in consideration of our culture and what will make us look bad. Honor. But what is honorable about that? Ugh. What is honorable about reducing your daughter to the point where she has basically no agency, limiting her opportunities so that she just becomes a mother? And of course, I don't mean that in any way towards mothers. However, when you have other aspirations, you should just reject all of those for motherhood? When that's not even the pathway that you want? You're not even given the opportunity to question whether or not you want that pathway because it's expected of you. Disturbing. And then there's also the xenophobia, where the mother basically just doesn't want Lane to go out on a date with Dave, who is a white man. And no matter how close he was to everything that she expected, Lane was under the impression that if Dave met all of these social and political and religious expectations that her mother had, that she would be able to go out with him. But at the end of the day, he just wasn't Korean. Dating within your race is not a problem. Forcing your daughter to date within her race because it will bring shame to your family is a problem. So, what the fuck? Like, it's so messed up. And of course, Lane loves alternative and rock and all of this different music that is considered the devil's music, etc., etc. And then you find out throughout the series that her own mother, Mrs. Kim, has actually had to hide things from her mother. And this is around the time of Lane getting married to, what was his name? Oh my gosh, I forget his name because I honestly couldn't stand him. He was the white guy with the blonde hair from the band. Anyways, when she's getting married to him, she basically finds that her mother's mother is coming into America for the wedding. And so Mrs. Kim is basically going crazy. She's going throughout the house, hiding things, hiding all of her Christian items, all of her Bibles, everything that she has in that household that's Christian, and she has to swap it all out for Buddhist items and religiously Buddhist things. I don't know what the proper term would be. That's why I'm stuttering right now. I'm like, I don't know what the proper terminology would be for all of these items that are for religious purposes, but regardless, she has to swap them out because she does not want to be found out as someone that is deviated from her mother's expectations, of which were likely socially developed. So, when you think about it that way, there is also this generational issue, dare I say generational trauma, of mothers in the Kim household wanting to do what they want to do because they should be able to, because they're human beings with autonomy, but then not doing so in areas where their mothers can see that, because then they will be punished and put into some form of experience that will indoctrinate them or separate them from everything that they love. Force them to do things that revoke their agency and limit their agency, etc., etc. And that made me think instantaneously, oh, that's why you moved all the way to America. It's not just for opportunities for your child. It's also to escape the eagle-like view your mother has on you. And also, you don't want to be perceived a certain way. Constantly living in a manner to fulfill others' expectations, society's expectations. What will people think? What will people think? And the worst part is that none of these women have done anything wrong. Nothing that would actually, overturn anything within their religious beliefs, or if not overturning, at least not undermining. I don't find anything that they were partaking in to have been things that would have done that. But also, if they did, they have every right, because newsflash, religious beliefs are not the end all be all, because religious beliefs are interpretations of a religious text. Why do you think it's been used to enslave people? That wasn't okay. Religious beliefs had to be twisted and turned, rewritten, all sorts of horrible things. But then you're going to follow these beliefs that are likely rewrites of what God actually said to punish your daughter for liking a boy? Make it make sense. And the only reason that you're even objecting this is because it doesn't fall in line with what you find is socially acceptable because of other people's social expectations. This fear, this need to hide, put things underneath planks in your room, it's insane. And the fact that her mother could not recognize this and break out of it, it's not putting, I'm not going to put her on like the worst mother list because she does really suck, but she's low down there because I feel like the lengths that she's gone to gain her independence and her lack of accountability for that, her inability to recognize, okay, you know what, I had to deviate from my mother in order to be happy. Maybe I should let my daughter deviate a little bit, but obviously not go down some rabbit hole of becoming an immoral person. That was never going to be Lane anyways. But she can't reflect on her own self. She puts the same pressures, the same foundation of those pressures that were put on her by her mother onto her daughter. By re-instilling generational trauma, I lose respect for Mrs. Kim, even in her good moments. So that is why she's going to be lower on the list by the end of this. Next up, we have Jess's mom. I forget her name. Let me search it up. Okay, so her name is Liz. Liz Danes. So, what did I dislike about Liz? Other than everything. So, we're introduced to Luke's sister, who, by the way, I found it interesting that they both had L names. You know, some families like to do that. Anyways, so Liz is, an interesting person. She gets pregnant relatively young, and it's expressed by Luke that with their mother's death, it had a strong impact on the kids, his father, and while Luke and his father were out working, doing everything that they could to support the family and themselves and get through school, blah, 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 Liz, on the other hand, was left all alone to do whatever, and that got her in the wrong situations with the wrong people, not wearing the right protection. And furthermore, the man that she had done that with basically was also shit. I don't think he's even mentioned, really. He was just a total bum or something, and he just completely abandoned them, which is terrible. And I don't think, even though they didn't go into it much, I don't think Luke really recognizes the impact that had on Liz. I think it was very, emotionally out of touch. This happens to a lot of people where no one's around to keep an eye on them. No one's around to tell them what's right, what's wrong. No one's around to support them emotionally because everyone's out at work. And after something that traumatizing, horrifying, you want to seek comfort in somebody. You want someone to be there for you. So, of course, as the youngest person in that family, the only woman in that family, while all the men are grumpy and always out, of course she ended up falling into something that would be very, impactful for her future in a negative manner, but also a blessing, but in a negative manner. Of course she ended up getting knocked up. What did you think was going to happen? Without the proper guidance, most people are not going to make the right decisions. That's why we have teachers and stuff, but I just felt like the way that Luke spoke about the situation, it was as if, I understand that he's also speaking from a place of hurt. No one was there for him either. His dad wasn't exactly the most emotionally in tune, as described a lot of times in the show, and he was pulling up some of the weight. He just had to work. He just had to get through this shit. And as a man, he was socialized in a manner where he just couldn't then take the time to be like, you know what? I am really depressed. I am really feeling like shit. I just lost my mother. He wasn't afforded that opportunity, that space. Liz was afforded that opportunity and space, but she was also very young and wasn't guided in a direction to approach it in a healthy manner. So who did she seek comfort in? Another man who was yikes. He was yikes. So the way that I see it is those are both kids in adult bodies that are still struggling with what they had experienced. However, the way that she carries through her life is so irritating. Because, okay. Oh my god. Like, oh my god. Like, I'm like massaging my forehead right now, guys. I don't know if you guys can hear it. Can you hear that? I'm massaging my head right now because it's so irritating. Okay, so what did I find most irritating about it? Let's start there. She goes throughout her life, and her son at 15, not 15, like maybe 17, her son has come to the conclusion in this life that he will always be second to the men in his mother's life. I think that that's a cumulative thing that I can just conclude and move on, but I'm going to keep going. How do you fuck up so bad that your son has come to the conclusion that he will always be the second man to the men in your life, and these men are terrible, always in and out, because she's still seeking comfort in random or shitty men, and her son has to watch her throughout his whole life treat these men like gods and all sorts of things, and just be there when he needs her. She would up and leave. I think she would up and leave with these men. So of course when we are introduced to Jess, he's a troubled kid. Who's been there for him? So she has now re-perpetuated that issue of not having a parent be there for him. Worse, as a mother, when her mother had passed away, would she have not wanted to be a present mother for her son? When she didn't have her mother? When her mother passed away and you have the opportunity to now be a mother, a blessing, and instead you're deciding that you're going to do all these things that are basically distractions from motherhood, that responsibility that you sign up for? Please. And oh my god, like, it just makes me so irritated when I would see scenes of Liz, because she seems so mellow and blah blah blah, and it's probably because she's doing WEED. Like, what? She always looks like she's stoned. If I'm being really honest. I'm gonna have to censor that word. But, like, if I'm being really honest, she always looks like she is. She looks like she's very detached from the reality. She looks like she's very uninvolved, disassociated. And she falls under the permissive parenting style category. And it's just given Jess the opportunity to do things that wouldn't have been good for him. But luckily he hasn't, to a certain extent. He does smoke, but I don't think he does anything else because he gravitated towards literature. He's very smart. And he had to do that all on his own. He had to guide himself. He had to be there for himself. He had to choose himself rather than further perpetuate something that has been a form of generational trauma. And that's admirable. That's why I love Jess's character development so much. And I'm going to talk about him at some point and be like, he deserved a TV show, because he did. He did deserve a spinoff. But just the way that she acted as a mother is why she's going into the bottom category. Because although I feel really bad for her, I really do, the way that she didn't mother, the only thing that she fulfilled was having a roof over his head and having a father figure come in maybe once a month. And then how, okay, like, not that this should have an impact on a man's perception of women, but when people are growing up, regardless of gender, they look at their parents and the genders that those parents are, they may develop perspectives on people of that same gender as a result. And when you grow up with a mother who doesn't see her value, that is constantly with men that treat her like shit, that allows herself to be treated like shit by these men, and you know, avoid taking accountability and responsibility for being present for her son once he reached a certain age, I guess, like walking and talking and eating stage by himself stage, because that's how it seems throughout the series. It seems like that's what he's experiencing, right? So just the long list. Of course, the way that Jess acts is very, it's less misogynistic than Dean, but it's still, like, there are those moments where I'm like, you didn't have a positive female figure when you were growing up, and you had to find those positive female figures, and you're much better than Dean in many respects, but he still had those little moments, especially when it came to, like, how he's supposed to treat Rory. Because he and Liz are kind of on that same thing where they're like, I'll do it on my own time. I don't need a schedule. I don't live by a schedule. And it's like, he didn't feel like he needed to, like, set up plans for a date because he's never had an example of how to treat someone right. Even though he loves to read and he has probably seen so many examples of that in literature, the thing that literally raised him. But, you know, I feel like that's the main reason why he acted a certain way and why he runs away from his problems and all sorts of things. And to kind of be your own guide is a lot of pressure. I mean, it's like, for me personally, and some of the people that I know in my personal life, we have kind of been raised by the internet. And that is as a result of the whole iPad kid phenomenon, where parents will have, both parents are in jobs, or maybe one isn't, but regardless, they're shoving an iPad in the kid's face and not doing actual parenting. What does that do? The kids are raised by people on the internet. They're raised by what they choose to click on and what they find comfort in, or just some form of authoritative figure. Not authoritarian, but like someone that has some form of authority that you respect, you're entertained by, and you feel a connection with. I think that's like the beginning of a parasocial relationship for a lot of young people, but I digress. I find that I was very influenced by the things that I used to watch because my parents were always having something quote unquote better to do. And I would choose content like that were either political or feminist, or I would choose things with like Black women talking about dating. It was often dating advice because I was very curious about that a lot growing up. And I would watch TV shows like Modern Family, blah, blah, blah. Just all these different representations that I wanted to see emulated in my real life that I didn't actually get to have. And I would read, but not nearly as much as I do now. I feel like that's a given. I'm an adult now, but nonetheless, in the same way that our generation, many of us have been raised by the internet, Jess raised himself with books as a manner likely to escape from the reality that he's been given. So while Liz doesn't seem present in this reality and seems like a total WEED head. He escapes reality through literature. So he's done it in like a healthy way, but also not healthy. Because as intelligent as he becomes and became, that is not healthy. And it's not given him the opportunity to be really emotionally in tune with himself. Because he hasn't had anyone to bounce these ideas off with for a long time. And that is up until he develops, and then he has his whole book agency company thing going on, and he's a publisher and he's super successful, and that is just so exciting to see his development from something that kind of saved him into something that literally gets him the success that he deserves. But why couldn't his mother have mothered the way that she had always wanted, that she missed out on because of her mother's passing? And leaving your son to his own devices, if Jess didn't have the facilities that he had and the interests that he already had a good head on his shoulders, basically. So if he didn't have that ability to take responsibility for himself, he could have been in a whole other way. And that is why I can't stand parents like this, so this is why she is going on the bottom tier. Not the bottom tier, the bottom level. I don't know how many levels I'm going to make from this, because I'm recording this before I organize the final results, but I know in my head right now, I'm putting her like either bottom or second bottom, like no. And I'm sorry, like I can feel bad for you and recognize why you've done this shit and still be like, you suck. You really, really sucked and you should have never been a parent, which I feel like Jess says at least once in the series. And that line where he's like, you have nothing, I have nothing. Like, that made me want to cry. It's not fair. And then he gets just shipped off when he starts getting into trouble. Yeah. Just like how, like, what did you expect was going to happen? Of course he was going to start getting into trouble at some point. Because you're not there. He's just doing what you did, except obviously you did way worse because of your immediate experience with something horrific, but he was slowly developing in a way where he just literally had no one for a long time. So parents like this, I can't stand. So that's why she's going at the bottom. Oh my gosh, I have my class later. I'm supposed to be watching a recording of my lecture, but we're recording the video. So next is Lindsay's mom. Now, we only really see and hear of Lindsay's mom a couple times in the show, but I'm talking particularly about the scene where it's found out that Dean was cheating on Lindsay. I think first, although it's amazing that they got married young, I think I would like to get married young myself. I think that there were a lot of traditional roles involved, and I think that her mother reinforced many of them. I think that the way that Lindsay was getting treated in this relationship should have been something that she was able to discuss with her mother that didn't involve her mother reinforcing the idea that it's her fault. Now, I'm not saying that Lindsay's mom ever did say that. I'm saying that, like, some parents will tell you, hey, that's not okay. You should tell him that's not okay. And then other parents might tell you, maybe you should bake him a cake and rub his feet when he gets home. And that's the kind of mother I think Lindsay's mom was. I don't think that Lindsay had the necessary supports from her family to be like, this is wrong, you're being disrespected by this man. And that is why she was accepting this form of verbal abuse from him. And like, she does leave at the end of the conversation, but she doesn't know how to handle this kind of conversation because not enough was instilled in her. And by not enough, I mean literally not enough. She seems very insecure, not confident. She has nothing going on other than the fact that I think she's going to become a mother and is doing the housewife thing and makes him a meal and desperately thinks that if she performs better as a woman in the house, that this is going to make him less of a piece of shit. Little did she know she was being cheated on. But anyways, I feel like her mother didn't do anything wrong other than reinforce this kind of old, very obsolete conception of how women should act in heterosexual relationships. Now, of course, this is an old show, and her mother came from an older generation, so her advice wasn't wrong for the time, but she still should have had that space to be like, Mom, this is how Dean's treating me, and her mom not respond in a way that basically implies that it's her fault, that she's not performing as a woman in the way that she should, in complete submission and servitude to a level that would satisfy this man. That is fucked up. Now, when we get to that scene where we're approaching the conversation, well, more the confrontation that happens between Lorelai and Lindsay's mom, we find that Lorelai first describes the fight that Lindsay and Dean have as, what did she say?
It's unbelievable. It was bad. She was yelling, she was throwing things, he was yelling, she called him a jerk. It was very violent and very public. Other people saw it. It was horrible.
This was not...
How was that violent? Like the scene where she's throwing his things out of the window. First of all, very classic, very R&B. Okay, Lindsay, like what?
I'm throwing it out the window. Yeah. Everything you want. Everything you want. Everything you want in this home out the window. All out the window. That'll teach a player to mess with me. Who we is to S to the double M. We out.
It wasn't violent. It was very public, and it should have been. My husband, who promised to love me for years, couldn't not cheat on me after a couple of months of being together. That can be public. I'm sorry, like, I had nothing against how Lindsay reacted. I was actually very proud of her, because that's the first time you really see her stand up for herself, truly. And break out of everything when she found out, which is unfortunate, but, period, Lindsay. And the fact that Lorelai describes it as, like, violent, very public, and, da-da-da-da, I'm like, girl, we know that she is describing it with a lot of bias, to say the very least.
Violent and very public. Other people saw it. It's horrible.
This was not supposed to happen. You should be ashamed of yourself, what you did.
Just wait.
What did she ever do to you? Huh? How did she hurt you? Why are you doing this?
Teresa, please, calm down.
Calm down. My little girl has to come home and find your heinous letter in Dean's jacket.
Look, we're in the street.
You little monster.
Hey! Pull back, lady.
There aren't hundreds of other boys in the world. You have to go after her husband.
Okay, stop attacking my daughter right now. You're upset. I get it, but you do not do this.
She slept with my son-in-law. She broke up a marriage. Are you proud?
She did not break up a marriage.
What do you know of this?
Enough. I know Rory.
Well, all I know is that now my Lindsay is devastated. Dean is back with his parents. Lives are destroyed, and you and your daughter can go to hell.
Her mother ate that. Ugh! The first time I saw this scene, because I was so trapped in the hole, well, I still think that Rory might become a better person. I still think that, Lorelai and Rory are this, because that's how the show makes us think of these people, right? When I see this scene again, I knew that Lindsay's mom ate the first time, but she ate. Okay. It was so satisfying to see this happen, and I was actually very disappointed at how Lorelai handled it. Now, I know, like, as a mother, you're not just gonna sit there and let somebody talk shit about your daughter in your face. But do you not feel any shame in addition to what your daughter did? Why are you still supporting her? I know you're supposed to go, blood is thicker than water, but, like, please. Please. I don't know, like, if my daughter did something like that, I really don't think I would have said what Lorelai said. I would have said, I recognize that my daughter has done something heinous, but it's really not appropriate to do this in public right now. That's all I would have said. Instead, Lorelai's talking about, you do not do this. I know Rory. You don't know Rory. Wait until the next few seasons come out, Lorelai. Please stop. Please don't. Please don't. And, oh my gosh, it was just so terrible. But I just love the fact that, you know, her mother was trying with Lindsay. Her mother did try, even though her advice was very domestic, which is not entirely a perspective that I like to follow, but I do respect it to a certain extent. But when push came to shove, Lindsay's mom showed up. Lindsay's mom showed up. And that is why Lindsay's mom is going to be higher up on the scale. Also, I want to say quickly before I go on to the next mom, like, I understand absolutely that Lorelai was going to defend her daughter no matter what. Like, that's just how Lorelai is. I'm not going to do the same thing. I was probably just going to sit there and be like, you know what, I'm sorry. I recognize what she did, da-da-da. But Lorelai is not that kind of mother. And Lorelai is truly convinced that her daughter did something not with any, you know, heinous or selfish intentions or da-da-da. Even though, like, behind closed doors, she basically called her selfish, da-da-da. Like, she's doing the right thing from that perspective. But at the end of the day, Lindsay ate. Lindsay mom ate. Lindsay ate. And Dean kind of ate a little bit too in the end, even though he's a piece of shit. So. And also, like, at the end when Rory's like, I don't regret what happened, but I'm gonna take myself out of the mix because you need to figure out your marriage. Girl. Tooth Gnash. Next up we have Michelle's mother. Now, I think there was only one episode where Michelle's mother is there, and at first, you know, he's very excited with everything. And then it's found out that he's on a diet, and then his mother is like pissed. That, to me, was like their own undercover way of like, because, okay, let's be honest, like, we all knew that he was gay, right? So I feel like that was the show's little way of like giving us an example of what it would be like if he came out. But I don't think that that was going to happen if he came out anyways. But I think that that was just like the showrunner's way of having this little moment where like he's had a secret that he's been keeping from his mother. And now that she knows, the relationship has been changed forever. I'm like, please. Oh my gosh. But it was just very nice to see that mom. So she's just, you know, I have nothing to really say about her because otherwise her and her son do have a great relationship. But let me do a little bit of research before I close this off with Michelle's mom. Hold on. I can't really find any other information that would tell me this otherwise. So now we're moving on to the next mom. Anna Nardini. Okay, so Anna Nardini, aka Luke's baby mama, the one that I wrote down like earlier in the video, she was a great mother. She did everything that she could. She was very intelligent. I really liked her. But I keep saying because I'm like, you know, trying to like preface this, but what did I not like about her? Hiding your daughter from her biological father for years, knowing that not only was he a decent human being, but that he was not morally skewed and actually very financially stable. Oh, and a good person. It's not like he was up to no good, and the only reason that she kept him away was because he had expressed like, oh, he didn't like kids. It was still disgusting for you to do that. Like, why would you, like, it's her business because it is her child. However, why wouldn't you want your child to have a stable father figure, have that potential support, get child support? Huh? To me, that made no sense. And she is a very independent woman. She's quite successful in her clothing store. Her daughter is incredibly smart. she didn't need the extra help, but it's very odd that she wouldn't want to then also have Luke as a present father figure, knowing that he's a good person. Her choice, but still very odd. And the way that she spoke about him, spoke to him as if he was beneath her. And during the court case that they had, when she introduced, when they're introduced, and then she wants to completely remove her daughter from having her father in her life, for like, I feel like people underestimate the impact that it has on a child to not have a father figure present. And I feel like it was very selfish. I'm not discounting the fact that she had to be present for her mother back where in the country that they were from. However, still could have arranged for her daughter to come in the summer. You know, it really didn't have to get as ugly as it did. And I don't know, I just feel like Anna Nardini was very disrespectful a lot towards Luke. Most fathers, if they were to find out that that was happening and that they had a child all this time, would have not stepped up to the plate that in the same way that Luke did. And just yikes. So Anna, great mother, however, was very concerned with what the other moms think and was very like hyper. I wouldn't say that like as a mother I wouldn't think in the same way a lot of the time, but she was like a little controlling and didn't know how to let loose. To say it in the nicest way. So I have mixed feelings about her, but she's definitely not high up, but she's definitely not low down. Next on the list, Sherry. I should put some like suspense music on fucking like iMovie GarageBand suspense music. Like Sherry. Okay. Probably the worst person on the show, because she was one of those women that was socialized to believe that being a mother is not worth it. It's not in the plan. You should plan to be a mother in your 40s or something and be a career woman until your 40s, and which, again, nothing wrong with that either. However, she didn't want to have kids. She gets pregnant and she carries through with the pregnancy, which is, you know, that's the decision that she made, despite being someone that didn't want kids, and is giving the energy of someone that would have probably emotionally abused her child because she is such a narcissist. When Lorelai originally met her, she had a bad feeling about her. And she was so right. Because there was something really, really, really fake about this woman. Like, she was definitely giving narcissist, like, female narcissist vibes. And I couldn't put my finger on it either. And it was only until she had gotten pregnant. No, not even until she got pregnant. It was only until that one time where she came over and she was like, we don't have to have a relationship, but I want to have a relationship with Rory. But we don't have to have a relationship. We don't have to have a relationship. I was like, girl, are you crazy? Like, she just kept repeating herself over and over again. I was like, oh, like, there's something wrong with her. And then the way that she acts after having to be a mother for a little bit of time and then runs away to Paris, I think. Hold on. I'm not sure if it was Paris. Let me get my facts straight. I think she just ended up completely abandoning her child, her infant child, and left a note. Which is like the exact opposite of what Lorelai did when she was young and had a baby. She left a note and then left with her child. So that's kind of an interesting parallel. But anyway, what the fuck? Oh my god, like, I'm sorry, like I keep just like sighing and saying, "Oh my god," because like these people really piss me off. But Sherry was someone that was like she was giving me very creepy energy. She was giving me narcissist, and then what she did in turn resulted in some form of like lifetime karma for Christopher, because Christopher was the one that didn't have to do any of the parenting because she ran away. He didn't come looking for her, which is ridiculous. Like, and he wasn't a part of his daughter's life for so long. And you know, I know how he likes to say, like, you know, you didn't give me that opportunity, so da da da. It's like, boy, you had some form of custody, I'm pretty sure. You could have gone looking for her with all of that money, and you could have insisted, look, I need to see my child at least twice a week. But you didn't, because you were off having fun and gallivanting for the next 16 years. Please. Boy, please. But he gets a form of karma through that experience because Sherry leaves and then he's left to do parenting on his own, and he gets to experience what he didn't help with all alone at a much older age, where, like, you know, he has to also support his family and have a nanny and all sorts of things, and it's very stressful on him despite the privilege that he has at this point in time, but still. And Sherry overall was just, I feel like, this karmic thing that comes in and stops her from getting with Christopher truly, and, you know, stops her as in Lorelai, and just all of this crazy shit. Because Sherry she grew up as a woman that was very career driven, and all of her friends were very career driven. When she's pregnant and has the baby earlier, all of the women that she's friends with, so-called friends, keep saying, Sherry messed up, I can't come, I can't just leave my job, I'm busy. Your friend is going into labor and you can't leave your job. You must either have a really shitty job or you don't care. And they didn't care. Like the girls at that party were also giving, like, career woman narcissist. So it's like we have the mother narcissists that I'm about to talk about and have talked about, and then we have the career woman narcissist. It's like, you guys are they were so weird. So it was no surprise to me when Sherry suddenly did that, but I was shocked that she left without her child. All for a career opportunity. Like, she was just a really cold, selfish, crazy person. Like, you could see it in her eyes. Like, there's something about her eyes where I was just like, yo, they're twitching a lot. Like, she's weird. Like, there's something, oh my god. The actress did a really good job, though. So, Sherry is definitely, like, in the bottom rows of this list. Second last, we're going in on Emily Gilmore. Emily. Where do I begin? How is it that you have all of this privilege and manage to make your daughter completely run away from her money? How is it that your daughter chooses being broke with a child? And, like, obviously she probably left with, like, some money. But how is it that you are so privileged and can give your daughter so many opportunities and she chooses, like, nothing, and her baby, who is going to have nothing if she doesn't get her shit together somehow in this place that she's running away to, over living with you? Must have been a lot, right? All of the pressure that she put her daughter under, all of the superficialities, all of the debt, like the social debt, these expectations, social debt as in, like, you do something for your child and it's like, I do this for you, so you have to do this for me. But not in an extent that it's fair. Social debt as in, this is why Lorelai knew deep down, like, I would owe something, because everything is conditional in this household. Hence the Friday night dinners, representative of social debt. It is like this, everything is unconditional. I mean, everything is conditional. She doesn't experience unconditional love. And I don't know, just like that definitely did mess up Lorelai a lot. And Emily, much like Kim, much like Mrs. Kim, can't see the error of her ways, or when she does see the error of her ways, she doesn't take an accountability for that that's appropriate. She just makes it like, oh, woe is me. Like, girl, you're an adult. You are an adult. That's all I really have to say. I can make a whole video about all of the nastiness of Emily Gilmore, honestly, but I really don't even want to, because she's just like an entire narcissist. Even though she is like a nice person, she has like so many narcissistic traits that it's like almost like it deserves its own video. Like, she needs to be unpacked completely. Like, she's whoa, right? But the socialization that she had to create that kind of person was her high class society. It's like, and then the expectations that her mother had, you know, very just superficial, didn't give her the opportunity to really think deeper about who she was, and always think more so about who she is in her society. That's why everything she does is some sort of like, I'm at the DER, I'm getting us this new thing for social status, I'm arranging this thing for her social status. Like, it makes you wonder, like, how many things has she done just for herself? That, like, seriously. How many things has she done that truly involves her in the things that she say bring her purpose? And then when Lorelai sees that growing up, she's like, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be this nobody that just sits on all of the privileges that are given to her through her husband, and then doesn't contribute to society and puts everyone up for these horribly unrealistic expectations that reinforces elitism. I don't want to be that person, even though now we're moving on to Lorelai, who reinforces elitism throughout her entire time that she's raising Rory. What do I mean by this? Harvard is the goal. You have to get into Harvard. And setting your daughter up to have like these big goals is a fantastic thing. But the way that Lorelai goes about it, it's like, okay, like it's much more open range, but it's still in a way where I'm like, a lot of elitism, a lot of snobbery here and there. You catch it sometimes. And that does also come with, you know, Lorelai being an educated person, but it's also, there are some things that Lorelai will say where I'm like, you are really inconsiderate of other people's backgrounds. Kind of like your mother, but and that's what causes Rory to then grow up with a lack of consideration for basically everyone, if I'm being so honest, because she grew up then with her mother, who has a lack of consideration for a lot of people, and her other mother, her grandmother, oh my gosh, I need to eat, but her grandmother, who also had a lack of consideration for basically everyone. So in her formative years, there are like several tiers to the formative years, right? And within those formative year tiers, there are the big stages. It's like your literal development, your pubescent development, your high school years, then your young adult years, and then the developments are like grander and longer, right? So in her high school years, where she's preparing for her future, she is constantly around people who, and she's still a very impressionable person, very easily swayed. She's around these people that don't care about others, that just kind of just care about themselves and kind of gossip about others and blah, blah, blah. Like, why did you think Rory grew up to become like such a critical person that's also not confident in herself? Awkward. But anyways, Lorelai raises her daughter with this sort of elitist, but not elitist, golden child prodigy pedestal. Nothing wrong with knowing your daughter's the shit. Something wrong with making your daughter think that she is somehow absolved of all sin no matter what she does, and that Rory would never do anything wrong. I know Rory. Bro, please stop. And I think that also comes with the fact that their dynamic is more of a friendship which is why the lines are so blurred oftentimes. But, you know, in that kind of relationship, she did give her daughter a lot of opportunities, which makes her a great mother. She gave her daughter that space to grow, but she was taken for granted oftentimes as well. There was not this respect that I think Lorelai thought she had from her daughter. Because if she had the respect that I think she thought she had from her daughter, a lot of things wouldn't have happened. Namely, when Rory did things that were wrong, that she should have known were wrong, but didn't know that they were wrong because she was raised to believe that she could never do wrong. Not only by her mother, but everyone in this town. So, while Emily is lower down on the list, Lorelai isn't that high up either. I mean, she's in the higher tiers because she did a good job of raising her daughter, but did she do a good job of keeping her daughter accountable? Did she raise her daughter to become this entitled snob who is also not confident in herself either for some reason and constantly needs to go out with men that are verbally abusive because she didn't have a male figure throughout her brought-up-see? Again, with the not wanting to have a stable and positive romantic male figure when you're a straight woman, if you're a straight woman. If you're not a straight woman, obviously it's going to have to be someone else, but, you know, there needs to be a strong or healthy male figure in a child's life. So, not doing that, of course, your choice. And then also teaching her to become this entitled person. Of course, she then, like, goes into this whole part in her life where she feels entitled to grades, she feels entitled to achievements, she feels entitled to Harvard, Yale, etc. She feels entitled to the men in her life. Like, that's kind of exactly how you raised her, Lorelai. Like, I don't know why you're surprised. But, you know, did she do a better job than the other moms? Yes. So now it's time to do the ranking. I was recording the whole time. I'm a little irritated, but it's okay. I was recording a lot for intermission. I was really excited. I was singing the theme song, but I think I also saved you guys some like ear pain in that. So with that mistake and without further ado, oh my gosh, I keep saying it without further ado. Now instead we are going to be doing the whole pyramid instead of a ranking tier, but the pyramid is like giving dance moms. So I'm going to do the presentation and I'm going to like record me talking about it and then I'm going to have to screen record it separately. But you guys wouldn't have known that if I didn't say that. So anyways, at the bottom of the pyramid, how do I do her voice actually? Dance moms. Okay, so like, okay, another thing is like I made a really good joke like in the middle of that, but now it's like out of order. But anyways, I was saying how like it's funny how I'm putting the moms in a pyramid, but like I'm inspired by the dance moms pyramid. So anyways, I don't know, like I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so funny. Okay, so dance moms pyramid, because I only vaguely remember how it goes.
When fruits first...
Oh my gosh, not the advertisement. You know what I do, guys? I just completely lower it down when the advertisement comes up. I'm like, no, go away. Like, I'm done. Like, I turn it down. I don't even, like, not even with the ad skippers, even though I do have ad skippers. Now I just turn off the volume. Like, you can't sell to me if I can't hear you or see you. Like, please. What are you gonna do?
It's nobody. I don't even know why I'm here. I owe you an explanation. You do? All you want is drama here. Why don't we just go? Jojo, you were 5th in the competition. You're 5th on the pyramid. Sometimes you act like a 5-year-old. Maybe 5 is your lucky number, or not so lucky number. She did a good job.
Okay, so I'm gonna do like Abby. Hold on, I gotta move the microphone so I can see what's happening. Okay. Sherry! You're at the bottom of the pyramid. Your performance was terrible. You abandoned your child. You're a miserable bitch. You're a narcissist. And I don't know why you're even on this pyramid, if I'm being frank. Up next, Liz Danes. You were a mother. You had a child. That's about it. Maybe if you took more time with your son rather than going out with strange men every other week, you could have been higher up on the pyramid. Also, your son had to parent himself. So, 5th on the pyramid, Emily Gilmore. All of the opportunities that you did have to be a good mother, you didn't take, and all the privileges that you had, all of those moments that you could have performed well, you didn't. And honestly, you're close enough to Liz. You just have money. That's why you're right next to Liz on this list. It's because you have money. It's literally nothing else at this point. You were very toxic. Number 4 on the pyramid, Mrs. Kim. Performance was based in her socialization, Christian dogma, and a lot of xenophobia. You have a lot to work on. Number 3 on the pyramid, Anna Nardini. Fantastic mother, present mother, did it herself, girl boss. Could have used a little extra help. Could have had that healthy father figure. Didn't have to be selfish in a lot of cases, even though you did the right thing for the most part. Number 2 on the pyramid, Lindsay's mom. I don't know your name, but I'm very happy with how you handled the situation. Only reason you're in number 2, even though you're in second place, that's good, but the only reason you're in number 2 is because you allowed for your daughter to believe that certain things should be expected in that relationship based on your own values. Could have instilled a little more confidence in your daughter, but overall, you ate. And at the top of the pyramid for this week, as no surprise to anyone here, Lorelai. You were a fantastic mother. You did everything that you could. You abandoned toxicity and struggled for your daughter. You postponed your life for your daughter, which sucks, and you shouldn't have had to do that, but you did what you had to get your daughter to those opportunities that you didn't have, that you couldn't have had because of the mistakes that you made. And overall, I think that you did an excellent job despite how, kind of the lines are blurred between you and your daughter. But honestly, if your daughter was a little less all high and toity and mighty, and you actually instill a little more humbling, which I hate the word humbling, to be honest. I don't like the idea of humbling people, but Rory needed to be humbled, but blah, 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 blah. I digress. You're at the top of the pyramid. And that concludes this week's pyramid. Sherry, you're done. I have to ask you to leave. And that's a wrap. If you liked this video and you want to see more like this, subscribe, comment down below, like the video, and check this out on Patreon. Patreon saw it first! I'm sorry, but Patreon did see it first. So if you want to see it on Patreon and you want to see videos first, Patreon saw it first. And yeah, just thank you so much for all of your support. I can't believe we're at over 300 subscribers. I was so surprised. I was like, what? Because I had posted some stuff a couple months ago when I originally started this, and I was like, oh my gosh, this many people are interested in me talking about sociology and books. What? I need to stop saying what, but what? So thank you all so much for your support, and thank you all so much for liking this stuff. And yeah, so I love you all very much, and I can't wait to see you in the next video where we're going to talk more and more about Gilmore Girls and books and other TV shows, and just kind of analyzing and dissecting and criticizing. So yeah, also there are links to support me and good causes in the description. Bye.